My sister backstabbed me to become the favorite child because she couldn't stand seeing me happy, so I sent her lies crashing down. 1 year later, she's reaching out wanting to make amends, but now I hold all the cards. Growing up, it was me and my younger sister against the world, or more specifically, me and my sister against our family. You see, my parents always tried to pit us against each other. Who could get the most attention? Who could get better grades? Who was prettier, funnier, smarter? Everything was a contest, and every loss was rubbed in our faces, but me and Layla always promised each other not to give in to their BS. Sometimes as a joke, we'd even pretend to hate each other. I remember being 14 and leaving the house to go to school. Layla had makeup on while I didn't. Ugh, Amelia is so careless with her appearance. No wonder I get more guys than her, Layla said pridefully. I almost choked on my water. We are so proud of you, my mom exclaimed. My dad turned to face me and said, when will you finally take notes from your sister? His tone was sharp and cruel. As soon as we got on the school bus, we both burst into laughter. I couldn't even breathe. And our parents are mixed race. Our dad is South American while our mom is Chinese, and my sister looked more like my dad, which meant she naturally had a slower metabolism, while I had the skinny mini Asian genes. I always admired Layla though. She was younger than me but still had more curves, while I practically looked like an ironing board. But I didn't envy her, not for a single second, because if one of us got to be the prettier one, I would choose her every single time. But Layla also had something I never suffered from, and that was overeating. When she was 15 and I was 17, her boyfriend broke up with her. She didn't want to tell our parents because of the backlash, so I obviously helped to keep it a secret. But over the next few weeks, I saw her start to eat almost double the amount of food than usual, whilst keeping a secret snack stash under her bed. But I figured a little binge eating wouldn't hurt. Apparently after 3 weeks, she had gained 5 pounds, and I didn't even notice. I don't think she knew either, but our parents did. We were sitting at the kitchen table when my mom started pinching her arm. You're an effing disgrace, she said, burying her face in her hands. Meanwhile, my dad picked her up and dragged her over to the weighing scale. When he saw the additional 5 pounds, his face practically turned ghost white. Tears began to form in Layla's eyes, so that's when I yelled, "Oh shit, we're late for school," and dragged her out the door. On the bus, I gave her a huge hug, but instead of hugging me back, she told me to F off before putting in her AirPods and blasting Lena Del Rey. But I wasn't hurt, because what are younger sisters for if not to test your patience? But something shifted after that. She started losing a lot of weight and spent an hour every morning perfecting her makeup. And this entire time, they thought I was single. You see, while Layla and her BF were broken up, I had actually gotten a boyfriend of my own who just so happens to be awesome BTW. But Layla asked me not to tell our parents since they'd use it to make her feel like shitty. So when she had lost the weight, our parents would say things like, "No wonder Layla has a boyfriend and you don't. Boys probably look at you and wish that you looked like Layla." But instead of following our usual routine of locking eyes and holding back our laughter, Layla started joining in. I'm honestly disappointed to even be related to her. If it wasn't for me, the bloodline would be doomed. When our parents went to sleep that night, she convinced me that she was joking, and I believed her, until the next morning, because that's when she started doubling down. "Mom, Dad, can you please give Amelia some money so she can buy a boyfriend or something?" she screamed as soon as I walked into the kitchen. I stood there completely blindsided, and she kept going. "Don't worry, Amelia, you can always be a crazy cat lady." She then turned her neck to stare at our parents for their validation, and the second they started laughing, Layla's face completely lit up. For a while, I decided to let Layla just have her fun, get it out of her system. But after 3 weeks, we were sitting at the dinner table when I started to put food on my plate. "Are you sure you should be eating so much? No man will ever want you if you keep eating like a beluga whale." Suddenly, the entire house erupted into conversation about how greedy and obese I was. That's when I finally snapped. "Mom, Dad, I actually have something to tell you." I then took out my iPhone and showed them a photo of my very handsome BF. My parents' demeanor changed instantly. "Wow, honey, we are so happy for you," they said, and I continued to pile food onto my plate in peace. Meanwhile, Layla was completely red with anger. Like, what the F? I didn't even tell our parents that she and her boyfriend were broken up. I just wanted to live my life in peace, TBH. But apparently Layla was dead set on destroying it, because the next morning I woke up to my dad screaming right above my face, "You a word! How could you have done this to us?" In his hand was a positive pregnancy test. "Leela told us, get the F out of my home." "That's not mine," I said immediately. "I've never even taken a pregnancy test." My dad's jaw tightened. "Layla found it hidden in your bathroom trash. She was worried about you and came to us." I shook my head, fully awake now. "No, that's impossible. I'm not pregnant. I haven't even. Tyler and I haven't gone that far." My mom's expression hardened. "We also heard some very concerning voice messages between you and Tyler. Layla showed us recordings where you were discussing options." My heart started racing. Voice messages? What was she talking about? "I don't know what Layla showed you, but whatever it is, it's not real. I haven't sent any messages like that. You can check my phone." My dad crossed his arms. "We're extremely disappointed, Amelia. We raised you better than this. Until you're ready to be honest with us, we think you should stay with a friend. We need some time to figure out how to handle this situation." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were asking me to leave over something I didn't do. "Dad, Mom, please, this is crazy. I'm not pregnant. Layla is making this up." My mom's eyes filled with tears. "We heard your voice, Amelia. Why would your sister lie about something this serious?" I tried calling out to Layla. "Layla, tell them it's not true." But she just stood in the hallway with this weird little smile on her face. She was wearing her perfectly applied makeup, hair styled in loose waves, looking like she'd stepped out of an Instagram post while my world was crumbling around me. My hands were shaking as I stuffed some clothes into my backpack. I kept trying to explain to my parents that I wasn't pregnant, that they needed to calm down and listen to me, but they weren't having any of it. My dad literally stood over me while I packed, like I was some criminal. My mom kept muttering about how I'd ruined the family name and how they'd have to move to avoid the shame. I grabbed my phone charger and my wallet wallet, trying to think straight. Where would I even go? I had like $43 to my name and it was 7:30 in the morning. I tried texting Tyler, but he didn't respond right away. I thought about calling my friend Jess, but her parents were super strict and would definitely call mine. As my dad practically pushed me toward the front door, I caught a glimpse of Layla watching from the kitchen. She wasn't even trying to hide her satisfaction. This wasn't my sister anymore. This was someone I didn't recognize. The girl who used to stay up late with me watching scary movies and laughing until our sides hurt was gone, replaced by this stranger. We'll talk when you're ready to be honest with us, my dad said firmly as I stepped onto the porch. The door closed behind me with a decisive click. Not quite a slam, but final nonetheless. I stood there for a minute, completely shell-shocked. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patel, was watering her plants and staring at me with wide eyes. Great, just what I needed, an audience for my public humiliation. I started walking down the street, no destination in mind. The morning was chilly, and I realized I hadn't even grabbed a proper jacket. My phone buzzed. Finally, Tyler responding. But when I opened the message, my stomach dropped. It wasn't from Tyler, it was from Layla. Have fun being homeless, sis. BTW. I took care of your boyfriend situation too. Don't bother calling him. What did that even mean? I immediately tried calling Tyler, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted him, something crazy happened. Please call me ASAP. No response. I ended up at the park a few blocks from our house, sitting on a bench trying to figure out what to do next. I checked my social media and saw that Tyler had unfriended me on everything. What the hell was going on? That's when I got a notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. It was a screenshot of texts supposedly from me to Tyler, saying horrible things like I was only dating him as a joke and that I was cheating on him with his friend, but I never sent those messages. I frantically tried calling Tyler again, but he'd blocked my number. I sat there on that cold bench, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. My sister had completely set me up. She'd planted a fake pregnancy test, turned my parents against me, and somehow sabotaged my relationship with Tyler, all in one night. I couldn't believe how quickly my life had fallen apart. One minute, I was a normal high school senior with decent grades and a cute boyfriend. The next, I was homeless with $43 and a backpack full of randomly grabbed clothes. I sat on that park bench for almost 2 hours, watching moms with strollers pass by and old guys walking their dogs. Nobody looked at me twice. They had no idea my entire world had just imploded. I tried calling Tyler 5 more times, but it went straight to voicemail every time. I even tried calling from the park payphone. Yes, our town still has those, but he must have blocked that number too. I scrolled through those fake messages Layla had somehow created. They were meticulously crafted to look like they came from me, with details that made them seem authentic, mentioning inside jokes Tyler and I shared, using my typical texting style. There was even a part where I said his little sister was mentally challenged, which was especially cruel since his sister has Down syndrome and he's super protective of her. I realized Layla must have been watching us closely, gathering information to make her fake messages believable. Around 10 a.m., I finally worked up the courage to text my mom. Mom, I'm not pregnant. That test isn't mine. Please let me come home and explain. She read it immediately but didn't respond. I waited 15 minutes and tried again. Mom, I've never even had SX. Layla is lying to you. Read, but no response. I was getting hungry and had to pee, so I walked to the McDonald's near the park. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu and used their bathroom. While washing my hands, I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My eyes were puffy from crying, my hair was a mess, and I looked like I hadn't slept in days even though it had only been hours since I'd been kicked out. I sat in that McDonald's for another hour, nursing my small coffee and using their Wi-Fi to figure out my next move. I messaged a few friends, but it was a school day and nobody was responding. That's when I remembered Mrs. Kravitz, our elderly neighbor who used to babysit me and Layla when we were little. She lived alone since her husband died and was always super nice to us. I didn't have her number, but I knew where she lived. I walked the mile back toward our neighborhood, careful to take the route that wouldn't pass by my house. Mrs. Kravitz was in her front yard, tending to her roses when I approached. She looked up and immediately frowned with concern. Amelia? Shouldn't you be in school, dear? I tried to explain what happened without completely breaking down, but failed miserably. I ended up sobbing on her porch while she patted my back and made sympathetic noises. Mrs. Kravitz didn't ask too many questions, just brought me inside and made me tea. She told me I could stay with her for a few days until things sorted themselves out. I was so grateful I almost started crying again. Mrs. Kravitz let me use her shower and gave me some clean towels. She even found an old t-shirt of her grandson's for me to sleep in. While I was in the bathroom, I heard her on the phone, her voice low but firm. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but I had a feeling she was calling my parents. Part of me hoped she could talk some sense into them, but another part was terrified they'd come drag me away or something. When I came out, Mrs. Kravitz just smiled and said she'd made up the guest room for me. She didn't mention any phone call, and I was too exhausted to ask. I collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. I woke up around dinner time to the smell of lasagna. My phone was blowing up with notifications, mostly from school friends who'd heard rumors that I'd been kicked out. Apparently, Layla had been telling everyone I was pregnant and had run away with some college guy. What the actual heck? The lies were getting more elaborate by the hour. There were also 3 missed calls from my mom, but no voicemails or texts. I didn't know if that was a good sign or not. I decided to wait and see if she'd call again before reaching out. Mrs. Kravitz and I ate dinner together, and she told me stories about when she was young. It was nice to focus on something other than my disaster of a life for a while. After dinner, I helped with the dishes, and she showed me how to work her ancient TV so I could watch something before bed. Around 9 p.m., my mom finally texted, "We need to talk. Come home tomorrow after your father leaves for work." No apology, no acknowledgement that they might have overreacted, just a command to come home when my dad wouldn't be there. I showed Mrs. Kravitz the text, and she advised me to go, but to be careful. "Your parents love you," she said, patting my hand. But sometimes love gets all twisted up with expectations and fear. Just tell them the truth and stand your ground. I barely slept that night, rehearsing what I'd say to my mom. By morning, I had it all planned out. I'd calmly explain that I wasn't pregnant, that Layla was lying, and that I deserved to be treated better. I even practiced in front of Mrs. Kravitz's bathroom mirror, trying to look confident and mature. Mrs. Kravitz made me breakfast and gave me a hug before I left. "Remember, you're always welcome here if things don't work out," she said. I almost started crying again. It was weird how this neighbor had shown me more unconditional support in one day than my parents had in years. I waited until 8:30 a.m., knowing my dad would be at work by then. The walk to my house felt like marching to my own execution. When I got there, I hesitated before knocking on the door of my own home. How messed up was that? My mom opened the door and looked me up and down, like she was checking for visible signs of pregnancy. Without a word, she stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Mom always baked when she was stressed. I followed her to the kitchen, where she'd set out 2 mugs of tea. We sat across from each other at the table, the silence stretching between us like a rubber band about to snap. "I'm not pregnant," I said finally. "That test wasn't mine." My mom sighed and rubbed her temples. "Layla found it in your trash can, Amelia. Why would she lie about something like that?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Because she's jealous. Because she's been acting crazy ever since I told you guys about Tyler. Mom, I've never even had sex. I swear on Grandma's life." My mom flinched at the mention of her mother, but her expression remained skeptical. "Then whose test was it?" "I don't know. Maybe it was Layla's. Or maybe she bought it and faked the positive result." I was getting frustrated now. "Have you even asked her? Have you questioned anything she's told you?" My mom's face hardened. "Don't try to blame your sister for your mistakes. Layla has been nothing but concerned about you. She showed us the messages you've been sending to that boy too. Horrible things, Amelia. We didn't raise you to be so cruel." I pulled out my phone and opened my messages with Tyler. "Look, there's nothing here. She faked those messages somehow. She's trying to ruin my life and you're helping her." My mom glanced at my phone but shook her head. "You probably deleted them." Layla showed us screenshots. I was about to argue more when the front door opened. Layla walked in, stopping short when she saw me at the table. For a split second, something like panic flashed across her face, but she quickly recovered. "What's she doing here?" Layla asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "We're trying to sort this out," my mom replied. "Amelia says the pregnancy test isn't hers." Layla rolled her eyes dramatically. "Of course she'd say that. I found it wrapped in toilet paper in her bathroom trash. Who else would it belong to?" I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You're lying. You've been lying about everything. Why are you doing this to me?" Layla's eyes narrowed. "I'm not the one who got pregnant and then tried to hide it. I'm not the one who was cruel to her boyfriend and then played the victim." I turned to my mom, desperate for her to see through Layla's act. "Mom, please, I'm telling the truth. I've never given you any reason not to trust me." My mom looked between us, clearly torn. For a moment, I thought she might actually believe me. Then Layla pulled out her phone. "I didn't want to have to do this," she said, her voice suddenly soft and sad. "But I recorded Amelia talking about her situation last week. I was trying to help her, but she made me promise not to tell you guys." My jaw dropped. "What? That's insane. We never had that conversation." Layla pressed play on her phone, and I heard what sounded like my voice saying, "I messed up, Lay. I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. Please don't tell Mom and Dad." I felt like I was going to throw up. That's not me. That's not my voice. She must have used one of those voice simulation apps. But I could see in my mom's eyes that she believed Layla. The recording continued with me, talking about how scared I was and how I might get in termination of pregnancy. It was surreal hearing my voice say things I'd never said. The recording was cleverly edited, with background noise that sounded like my bedroom, and even the specific way I sometimes called her Lay when we were having serious talks. "I think you should leave," my mom said quietly when the recording ended. "Your father and I need time to process this." I couldn't believe what was happening. "Mom, that recording is fake. Layla is manipulating all of you. Why can't you see that?" My mom stood up, her face hard. "Enough, Amelia. You can stay with whoever you were with last night. We'll contact you when we're ready to talk again." I looked at Layla, who was watching me with this weird, satisfied smile. In that moment, I hated her. Actually, legitimately hated my own sister. I grabbed my backpack and stormed out, slamming the door behind me. I walked aimlessly for a while, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How had Layla created that recording? It sounded exactly like me, but I'd never said those words. And why was she doing this? Just because I'd shown our parents a picture of Tyler? It seemed like such an extreme reaction. Speaking of Tyler, I decided to try one more time to reach him. I found a bench at a bus stop and called his number, not expecting him to pick up, but to my surprise, he did. "What do you want?" His voice was cold. Nothing like the warm, friendly Tyler I knew. "Tyler, please listen to me. I didn't send those messages. My sister created fake screenshots or something. I would never say those things about you or your sister." He was quiet for a moment. "How do I know you're telling the truth? Those messages looked exactly like they came from your number." I took a deep breath. "Because you know me, Tyler. We've been dating for 2 months. Have I ever said anything mean about your sister? Have I ever been cruel to you or anyone else? Please, just meet me somewhere so we can talk in person." After what felt like forever, he sighed. "Fine, I'll meet you at the library in an hour. But if you're lying to me, Amelia, we're done for good." I agreed and hung up, feeling a tiny spark of hope for the first time since this nightmare began. If I could convince Tyler of the truth, maybe I could start unraveling Layla's web of lies. I headed to the library, stopping at a convenience store to buy a granola bar with some of my dwindling cash. I needed to figure out a more sustainable plan if my parents weren't going to let me come home anytime soon. Tyler was already at the library when I arrived, sitting at a table near the back with his arms crossed. He looked up when I approached, his expression guarded. I sat down across from him and launched into my explanation. I told him everything, about my parents' favoritism, about Layla's recent behavior changes, about the fake pregnancy test and being kicked out, out? I showed him my actual text messages, which contained none of the cruel things he'd seen in those screenshots. I think she must have created a fake account with my name and picture, I explained. Or maybe she used one of those apps that lets you fake text conversations. I don't know how she did it, but I swear, Tyler, I would never say those things. Tyler listened without interrupting, his expression gradually softening. When I finished, he pulled out his phone and showed me the screenshots Layla had sent him. These came from a number I didn't recognize, he said. The person said they were your friend, and that I should know what you were saying behind my back. I should have questioned it more, but the text looked so real, and they had details only you would know. I looked at the screenshots more carefully. Wait, see this part where I mentioned that time we got caught in the rain after the football game? I never told Layla about that, but I did post a picture of us all wet and laughing on my Instagram. She must have used that to make her story more believable. Tyler nodded slowly. And this part about my sister, you've only met her once and you were super nice to her. Exactly. I would never say something so horrible. Layla is trying to isolate me from everyone who cares about me. First my parents, now you. Tyler reached across the table and took my hand. I believe you, Amelia. I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to explain before blocking you. I squeezed his hand, fighting back tears of relief. It's not your fault. The screenshots were convincing. I probably would have believed them too. We spent the next hour coming up with theories about why Layla had suddenly turned against me. Tyler thought maybe she was jealous of our relationship, especially since her own boyfriend had broken up with her. I wondered if it was more about our parents' attention. Once they knew I had a boyfriend, they'd stopped comparing me unfavorably to Layla. Whatever her reason, we need proof that she's lying, Tyler said. Otherwise, your parents will never believe you. He was right. I needed hard evidence that Layla was behind all this. But how was I going to get it when I wasn't even allowed in my own house? Tyler offered to let me stay at his place, but I knew his parents wouldn't be cool with his girlfriend suddenly moving in. So I headed back to Mrs. Kravitz's, feeling slightly better now that at least Tyler knew the truth. Mrs. Kravitz welcomed me back with open arms and a fresh batch of cookies. I told her about my meeting with Tyler and my plan to somehow prove Layla was lying. You know, Mrs. Kravitz said thoughtfully, I've watched you girls grow up. Layla always needed more attention, more validation. Your parents didn't help with all their comparisons and competitions. But this behavior, it's concerning, dear. It's more than just sibling rivalry. I nodded, picking at a cookie. It's like she's become a completely different person. The Layla I grew up with would never do something this cruel. Mrs. Kravitz patted my hand. People change, especially at her age, but that doesn't excuse what she's doing. You need to stand up for yourself, but be smart about it. Don't sink to her level. That night, I came up with a plan. I needed to catch Layla admitting what she'd done, preferably on video. But how would I get her to confess? She was too smart to fall for a simple trap. The next day was Saturday, which meant both my parents would be home. I knew confronting Layla with them around wouldn't work. She'd just deny everything, and they'd believe her over me. I needed to get her alone. I remembered that Layla always went jogging in the park on Saturday afternoons. It was part of her new fitness routine since the weight gain incident. If I could intercept her there, away from our parents, maybe I could get her to talk. I told Mrs. Kravitz my plan, and she insisted on driving me to the park. I'll wait in the car, she said. If anything goes wrong, you come straight back, understand? I promised I would and set up the voice recording app on my phone. It wasn't ideal. Video would be better, but it was all I had. I tucked my phone into my jacket pocket, making sure the microphone wasn't covered. Sure enough, around 2 p.m., Layla showed up at the park in her running clothes. I waited until she was on the far side of the jogging path, away from other people, before approaching her. Layla, I called out. She stopped running and turned, her eyes widening when she saw me. What are you doing here? She asked, looking around nervously. Are you stalking me now? I forced myself to stay calm. I just want to talk, away from mom and dad. I want to understand why you're doing this to me. Layla crossed her arms. I'm not doing anything to you. You got yourself into this mess. Cut the crap, Layla, I said, stepping closer. We both know you planted that pregnancy test. We both know you faked those messages to Tyler. What I don't understand is why. We were always a team, remember? Us against them. Something flickered in Layla's eyes. Regret, maybe? But it was quickly replaced by hardness. That was before. Before what? I pressed. Before I showed them a picture of my boyfriend? How is that such a betrayal? Layla laughed, but it wasn't her normal laugh. It was bitter, almost ugly. You don't get it, do you? For once in my life, they were proud of me. Me, I was the pretty one, the popular one, the one with the boyfriend. And then you had to ruin it. I was stunned. Layla, they've always been proud of you. They constantly compared me to you, remember? Why can't you be more like Layla? Layla would never get a B-. It was always about how great you were. She shook her head. That's not the same as being genuinely proud. They were just using me to make you feel bad. But after I lost the weight, after I started really trying with my appearance, they actually respected me. And then you showed them that stupid picture, and suddenly it was all, Amelia this, Amelia that. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you decided to destroy my life, make them think I was pregnant, get me kicked out of my own house, turn my boyfriend against me, all because you were jealous of a little attention? Layla's face flushed with anger. You have no idea what it's like to always be second best. Even when they were praising me, it was only to hurt you. Never because they actually thought I was special. At least now they see you for who you really are. And who is that, Layla? A pregnant teenager? A cruel girlfriend? Because none of that is true, and you know it. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. What I know is that for once, I'm the good daughter. I'm the one they trust, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me. I felt sick to my stomach. This person in front of me wasn't my sister anymore. She was someone consumed by jealousy and insecurity, willing to hurt anyone who threatened her position. You know they'll find out eventually, I said quietly. Lies always come to light. Layla smirked. Not if there's no one around to expose them. Stay away from my family, Amelia. You're not welcome anymore. With that, she turned and jogged away, leaving me standing there with my heart pounding. I waited until she was out of sight before stopping the recording on my phone. My hands were shaking as I played it back, praying saying it had captured our conversation clearly. It had. Every word, including Layla's admission that she knew I wasn't pregnant and that she'd faked the messages to Tyler. It wasn't a full confession of planting the test, but it was enough to cast serious doubt on her story. I hurried back to Mrs. Kravitz's car and showed her the recording. She listened with a grave expression. "Oh dear," she said when it finished. "Your sister needs help, Amelia. This isn't normal behavior." I nodded, still processing Layla's words. "I need to show this to my parents. They have to know what she's doing." Mrs. Kravitz agreed to drive me home. On the way, I texted Tyler to update him. He offered to come with me for support, but I told him this was something I needed to do alone. When we pulled up to my house, I saw both my parents' cars in the driveway. My stomach knotted with anxiety, but I was determined to make them hear the truth. Mrs. Kravitz squeezed my hand. "Remember, stay calm and let the evidence speak for itself. I'll wait here in case you need a quick exit." I thanked her and walked up to the front door, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door of my own home, ready to reclaim my life from Layla's web of lies. My mom opened the door, looking surprised to see me. She started to say something about how I shouldn't be there, but I cut her off. "Mom, I have proof that Layla's been lying about everything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please, just listen for 5 minutes." She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. My dad was sitting in the living room watching TV. He looked up when I walked in, his face immediately hardening. "What is she doing here?" he asked my mom, like I wasn't even standing right there. "She says she has proof about something," my mom replied, sounding tired. "Let's just hear her out." I stood in the middle of the living room, feeling like I was on trial. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. "I recorded a conversation with Layla at the park today. You need to hear this." My dad started to object, but my mom put her hand on his arm. 5 minutes, like I promised. I pressed play on the recording. As Layla's voice filled the room, admitting she knew I wasn't pregnant and had faked messages to Tyler, my parents' expressions changed from skepticism to confusion to shock. My dad's face turned red with anger, but I couldn't tell if it was directed at me or Layla. When the recording ended, there was complete silence in the room. I waited, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Where is your sister?" my dad finally asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "I don't know," I replied. "She was jogging at the park when I talked to her." My mom had her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. "I don't understand. Why would she do this?" I explained everything. How Layla had been jealous of the attention I got when I showed them Tyler's picture, how she'd been acting different ever since the weight gain incident, how she'd systematically tried to isolate me from everyone who cared about me. She wanted to be the favorite, I said, and she was willing to destroy me to make that happen. My parents exchanged looks that I couldn't quite read. My dad stood up abruptly and grabbed his car keys. "I'm going to find her," he said. "She needs to explain herself." After he left, my mom and I sat in awkward silence. I could tell she was processing everything, trying to reconcile the daughter she thought she knew with the person on that recording. "I'm sorry," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We should have listened to you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying. Part of me wanted to scream at her for believing Layla so easily, for kicking me out without even giving me a chance to defend myself. But another part just wanted my mom to hug me and tell me everything would be okay. She did neither. Instead, she asked practical questions about where I'd been staying and if I was okay. I told her about Mrs. Kravitz, and she seemed relieved I hadn't been sleeping on the streets or something. "You can come home now," she said, like she was doing me some huge favor. "We'll sort this all out when your father brings Layla back." I texted Mrs. Kravitz to let her know I was staying, then went up to my room. It was exactly as I'd left it, which felt weird somehow, like the room should have changed because I had. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. About an hour later, I heard the front door open and my dad's voice followed by Layla's. I took a deep breath and went downstairs. Layla was sitting on the couch, looking like a cornered animal. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed with hatred. My parents stood on either side of the room, creating this weird triangle of tension. "Play the recording," my dad told me, his voice flat. I did. Layla's face went through a series of emotions as her own voice betrayed her. Surprise, anger, calculation, and finally defeat. When it ended, she didn't try to deny it. She just stared at the floor. "Explain yourself," my dad demanded. Layla looked up, her eyes red but dry. "What's there to explain? You heard it all. I wanted to be the favorite for once. Is that so terrible?" My mom made a choked sound. "You got your sister thrown out of the house. You made us believe she was pregnant. How could you do something so cruel?" Layla's face hardened. "You're the ones who taught us that being the favorite was everything, who got better grades, who looked prettier, who had more friends. It was always a competition with you two as the judges. Well, I finally won, and it felt good." My parents looked stunned, like they'd never considered how their behavior had affected us. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. "That doesn't excuse what you did," my dad said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "I know," Layla replied, and for a second, I saw a flash of the sister I used to know. I went too far, but I'm not the only one who messed up here. She was right, and we all knew it. My parents had created this toxic environment where we felt like we had to compete for their love. I had enabled it by playing along with our us against them games instead of confronting the real problem. "So what happens now?" I asked, looking around at my fractured family. My dad sighed heavily. "Now we try to fix this mess. All of us." The next few days were awkward as hell. My parents insisted we all go to family counseling, which was about as fun as it sounds. The therapist, Dr. Reese, was this calm, no-nonsense woman who didn't let anyone dodge the hard questions. In our first session, she made my parents confront how their constant comparisons had damaged Layla and me. My mom cried a lot. My dad got defensive at first, but eventually admitted he'd been repeating patterns from his own childhood. Layla and I had a separate session where we talked about our us against them dynamic and how it had both protected and hurt us. Dr. Reese pointed out that our fake competitions had become a real one without us realizing it. "You both learned to seek validation validation through comparison, she said. Amelia through academic achievement, Layla through appearance. When those roles were threatened, the system broke down. It made sense, but understanding the problem didn't automatically fix things between us. Layla apologized to me, but it felt rehearsed, like she was saying what she knew she was supposed to say. I accepted her apology because what else could I do? But the trust was gone. Tyler was amazing through all of this. He came over to meet my parents properly, and they were awkwardly nice to him. Layla avoided him completely, which was probably for the best. He told me later that he thought my whole family was kind of nuts, but he liked me enough to deal with it. I couldn't really argue with his assessment. The hardest part was rebuilding my relationship with Layla. We'd gone from being best friends and allies to complete strangers. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with this mix of resentment and regret that broke my heart. Other times she'd make an effort, asking about my day or offering to do my hair like she used to, and I'd see glimpses of my sister coming back. About a month after everything went down, Layla knocked on my bedroom door one night. I was surprised. We'd been carefully avoiding being alone together. "Can we talk?" she asked, hovering in the doorway. I nodded and moved over so she could sit on the bed. She looked nervous, picking at her nail polish like she used to do when we were kids. "I've been thinking a lot about why I did what I did," she said slowly. "And it wasn't just about mom and dad's attention. It was about you too." I waited, not sure where this was going. "You've always been so confident," she continued. "Even when they were comparing us, you never seemed to care that much. You just did your own thing. I always needed their approval more than you did, and I hated myself for it." I was surprised by her insight. "I cared," I told her. "I just got better at hiding it." She nodded. "I know that now, but back then, I thought you were just naturally stronger than me. And when you showed them that picture of Tyler, and they were suddenly all proud of you for having a boyfriend, something in me just snapped. It was like the one area where I thought I was winning suddenly didn't matter anymore. It was never a real competition, Lay," I said, using her old nickname without thinking. "That was the whole point of our game, remember? To make fun of how stupid their comparisons were." "I know, but somewhere along the way, I started believing them." She looked up at me, her eyes wet. "I'm really sorry, Amelia. Not just for what I did, but for betraying us. We were supposed to be a team." This time, her apology felt real. I still didn't fully trust her, but I could see she was genuinely trying to understand her actions and make amends. "It's going to take time," I told her honestly, "but I think we can get back to being sisters again. Real sisters, not fake enemies or fake allies." She smiled a little at that. "I'd like that." We didn't hug or anything dramatic like that, but something shifted between us that night. A first step toward healing. Our parents were trying too, in their own way. They stopped making comparisons, at least out loud. My dad started asking about my interests instead of just my grades. My mom made an effort to compliment both of us equally. It was awkward and obvious, but I appreciated the effort. Dr. Reese said healing would take time, and she was right. There were good days and bad days. Sometimes Layla would get that jealous look in her eyes when I mentioned Tyler, or when our parents asked about my college applications. Sometimes I'd catch myself being unnecessarily cold to her, still punishing her for what she'd done. But slowly, things got better. We developed new ways of interacting that didn't involve pretending or competing. I helped Layla study for her SATs without making it a big deal. She helped me pick out an outfit for prom without any backhanded compliments. By the time I left for college that fall, we weren't best friends again, but we were sisters, real ones. When I hugged her goodbye, she whispered, "I'm proud of you, sis, for real this time." And I believed her. Looking back now, from my sophomore year of college, I can see how that whole mess actually forced us to confront issues our family had been avoiding for years. My relationship with my parents isn't perfect, but it's more honest. Layla and I text almost every day, sharing memes and updates without the old undercurrent of competition. She's applying to colleges now, including mine, though I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. Tyler and I are still together, somehow surviving the long-distance thing. He's coming to visit next weekend, and I'm thinking about introducing him to my new friends. I still have Mrs. Kravitz's number in my phone. I call her sometimes just to check in. She always asks about Layla, and I always have something positive to tell her. Small steps, but real ones. The other day, Layla sent me a selfie of her wearing no makeup with the caption, "Guess what? Still pretty." It made me smile. Not because of how she looked, but because she's finally starting to see herself through her own eyes instead of our parents. And that's worth more than being the favorite ever was.